It's kind of weird that we've got two movie studios out there that are really leaning on one character. His name is Spider-Man. Obviously, you've got Disney with the MCU in conjunction with Sony using Tom Holland Spider-Man in the MCU. We've gotten 3 movies so far. He's been a part of Civil War, several Avengers movies, and we're all wondering, when are we getting Spider-Man 4? Sounds like we'll be getting that sooner than you might anticipate. And then we also have Sony, the rights owners to Spider-Man when it comes to movies and all that stuff, leaning heavily into his rogues gallery and side characters to make a weird Spider-Man universe. Without Spider-Man, that has not been very successful outside of Venom, which was entirely predictable on the part of anybody who thought about it. Unless you were going to do like Black Cat or a select few other characters, this shit just wasn't going to work. But they also have their Miles Morales, Into the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse, and I think the last one's going to be Beyond the Spider-Verse or something like that, movie franchise, which is doing very, very well. We were actually supposed to get a movie this year. The date has already passed, and it was pushed to 2025. Sounds like it might get pushed out farther than that. Not sure if that has anything to do with Spider-Man 4 being fast-tracked by the MCU, but we will likely be getting that film after Spider-Man 4 that wasn't even announced when they already had this sequel lined up. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but we will try to make heads and tails of this and get into the news. And I got a couple of other little tidbits on the end regarding the MCU on Disney+. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings director Destin Daniel Cretton has signed with Marvel Studios and Sony Pictures to direct the untitled Spider-Man 4. This marks his 3rd MCU project, along with Shang-Chi's solo movie and his upcoming Wonder Man series on Disney+. THR sources noted that Spider-Man 4 is moving quickly toward the start of production and is expected to begin shooting in early 2025. This means that Sony is targeting a 2026 release date for the sequel, putting it near the middle of Marvel Studios' Phase 6 slate chronologically. A recent rumor from scooper Daniel Richmond stated that Spider-Man 4 was aiming for a July 2026 release, which would put it a couple of months after Avengers Doomsday hits theaters on May 1st, 2026. And that, my friends, is very, very smart on the part of not only Sony, because they're going to get a bunch of money on it, not really have to produce the movie, but also on the part of Kevin Feige and the MCU and everybody running that, because they finally got their big win. We've got Deadpool and Wolverine breaking records left and right, might be the most successful movie of the year, although Inside Out 2 is going to be very difficult to overcome, but that thing is a massive hit. But we've also got, on the heels of that, a Captain America movie that doesn't have a lot of positive buzz, a Thunderbolts movie that also doesn't have a lot of positive buzz, and then we've got Fantastic Four kind of leading into Avengers Doomsday, which has the return of Robert Downey Jr., should create some excitement. So if they can weather Captain America and the Thunderbolts and they actually make a good Fantastic Four movie, and I will admit right here, the look of the thing looks pretty good. I don't know if that's actually going to be in the movie or if that's going to be like CGI'd over later, but it looks like his head from what we've seen. Also, Pedro Pascal sounded like what I would imagine Reed Richards sounds like. He sounded like a smart guy being a professor and all that stuff in the very limited teaser trailer that we got for Fantastic Four. So maybe that's actually going to be good. And then we get to Doomsday, which I imagine, even if it's bad, people will go see just for Robert Downey Jr. and the fact that it's an Avengers movie. And then you start stacking up wins. Maybe you get a win out of Fantastic Four. You probably get a win out of Avengers. Doomsday, not an Endgame or Infinity War level win, but certainly better than Avengers Age of Ultron. That's what you're kind of hoping for. And then you stack that bad boy up with the Spider-Man 4, and all of a sudden, you got some momentum. You got Mo on your side, moving the MCU forward with some other projects where they're probably going to be a little bit more select on which heroes they're choosing, which teams they're choosing, and not just throw every single Tom, Dick, and Harry onto a film starring a character no one cares about out there that basically just screeched all the momentum of the MCU into a stop. Now, we had heard rumors that they were running out of villains for the MCU Spider-Man, but some people had put out their Tombstone, maybe a Hammerhead, the Rose. There are things that they could work with in there, and it sounds like they've got it all streamlined out and figured out what they kind of want to do. Now, Destin Daniel Cretton, I feel, is a very odd choice to replace John Watts, who had done the first 3 movies and was very successful with the Spider-Man franchise. Apparently, he doesn't want to do the 4th one. But could we get somebody with a track record of success? Like the Shang-Chi movie not only was not successful at the box office, it's not really highly regarded and nobody is excited for Wonder Man. Why are you throwing this guy on the second most important project that you have coming up over the next 3 years? It's absolutely insane that they're not going out there and entrusting their most important projects to their best creators. Is this the best they could get? You know, they got the Russo brothers at least coming back for Avengers Doomsday, but this guy hasn't really worked out, so that is cause for concern. But hopefully it's very, very good, and we've got a Spider-Man 4 movie coming, but it does appear we're going to have to wait for the Miles Morales Spider-Verse stuff from Sony to actually wrap up and finally come to the big screen after Spider-Man 4, which was very unexpected. A new report revealed that Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse might not release until 2027, despite an original release date in summer 2024. According to a report from industry insider Jeff Snyder, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse could see a release date in as late as 2027. On top of this, Snyder reported that allegedly Sony scrapped most of Beyond the Spider-Verse for creative reasons. With the lengthy animation process that would be needed for the alleged creative adjustments, it would make 2027 a likely release date as well. Writer-producers Phil Lord and Christopher Miller previously shared with Digital Spy they are willing to give Beyond the Spider-Verse as much time as needed to ensure it is as strong as it can possibly be. And what's interesting in there is we do know that Lord and Miller are currently like renegotiating their exclusive deal with their production company with Sony, and apparently it's not going well. They might actually be free agents very soon. I'm not certain that they're going to end up fulfilling the third movie in this, although it's probably already on their contract and it's already in production, so hopefully they do, because I do think Lord and Miller are part of the secret sauce that's made the Miles Morales Spider-Verse movies, you know, successful. But I am really surprised that they're taking this long, because I remember watching Across the Spider-Verse with my oldest son, and there's not an ending on the movie. The ending on the movie is just a teaser to let you know the ending of the movie is coming next year in Beyond the Spider-Verse, and it's still not here. So technically, most of us watched half a movie with no actual ending to it. And it's really frustrating that they wouldn't have all these things lined up and set up and ready to go. You figure with the ending that you got in Across the Spider-Verse, you already had the script and everything nailed down for the final installment of this trilogy. That would actually make sense, because you literally had already promised it as soon as people walked out that it was coming very, very soon. So it's really weird that they actually got to this point, but this has been a successful franchise. It's made Miles a more influential and important character throughout not only Marvel Comics, but just entertainment in general. We had some successful Miles Morales video games and things of that nature, and it's likely very smart that they are going to take their time. You don't want two Spider-Man movies coming out too close to each other, so if they're dead set on Spider-Man 4 coming out, you know, in 2026 during the summertime, might as well wait for the next year anyway and make sure that you get it right. And it does sound like they were pushing a little bit too hard on the VFX people to get the graphics and animation completed on time for the last movie, which apparently was quite stressful and all that kind of stuff. But the weird thing that they're having creative reasons for this doesn't make a whole lot of sense, like I said, because the other movie technically didn't end. Like, this should be the ending of the story that you already started. You would imagine that you'd have everything kind of worked out, but we shall see on that one. If you're a big fan of Across the Spider-Verse, and my son is still waiting for the conclusion to the movie we started watching, you know, over a year ago at this point, you're going to have to wait a couple years longer. But that's what you get from Sony Spider-Man. It's just an absolute clusterfuck. That's probably the best way to describe Sony's, you know, futility in actually trying to make Spider-Man movies and all this kind of stuff. And certainly even with Miles Morales at this point, we do have an update regarding all that information we got with the MCU on Disney Plus and all the major changes. We're about to see the fruits of that labor. In the latest issue of SFX magazine, it was confirmed that Marvel Studios officially abandoned its first and arguably biggest Disney Plus strategy, beginning with its next release, Agatha All Along. Agatha All Along will be Marvel Studios' first live-action Disney Plus project, with a showrunner at the helm who is none other than WandaVision's head writer and creator, Jack Schaefer. Moving forward, Marvel's Disney Plus series will stick with the showrunner strategy, meaning that the showrunner, after leading the writer's room and creating and finalizing scripts, will continue as the creative lead through filming and editing. And it's quite shocking that they're just now coming along to the notion of a showrunner on projects. It's not like there's never been a Marvel TV show or a cartoon that was produced and distributed out on television, likely a lot of times by Disney themselves. Like, they know that you need a showrunner to manage the creative process from beginning to end and make sure that you get that correct vision of it and that it's actually carried out the way that it's supposed to. Now, as far as Agatha All Along being the first show with a showrunner, does this give you hope? Because we know that a lot of the MCU shows on Disney Plus have been not fun to watch. They've been inconsistent. They haven't had good storylines. But now we got a showrunner on Agatha All Along. Does that make you more likely to watch it? Or are you going to wait for like the next program that you're actually interested in? Me personally, I think there's probably an audience for Agatha All Along. I just don't know that it's an MCU audience for Agatha All Along. I think it's, you know, girls that are into witchcraft, which I don't think are really into Iron Man or Captain America or Black Panther. Certainly they might be into Wanda. Maybe. We'll see on that one. I think that was a bad move. But they do have like 2 years, 3 years of produced stuff that they've started the process on that they're just going to have to work their way through and like plow through it before all the crap and the really bad ideas are concluded. And you get what is probably supposed to be like the true vision of this next stage of the MCU. Hopefully something that's going to be in that next stage. According to the Cosmic Circus's Alex Perez, Marvel Studios is in an early development of Hawkeye Season 2. Speaking in a Q&A session on the site's Discord channel, he explained how one major idea for Season 2 would see Haley Steinfeld's Kate Bishop get a bigger role than she had in Season 1. A show like Hawkeye would be a natural lead-in point for the Young Avengers to assemble, which would seamlessly put Kate in a greater position of power. Additionally, Clint Barton would be an easy choice to serve as a guide for the youngsters if that plotline were to happen. Now, I do think having Clint Barton in Hawkeye Season 2 would be pretty difficult. I do know Jeremy Renner had a terrible accident. I think he almost died, some type of like snowplow thing or something there. And obviously, he's the Hawkeye. He's Clint Barton within the MCU and certainly was the lead Hawkeye within the TV show. Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop comes on as like his understudy or mentee in that show. And I actually like that one. As far as all the Disney Plus shows that I've watched that are MCU related, that's probably the best one. Now, as far as all the Disney Plus stuff that I've watched that's new, that's actually Disney Plus, I do think Andor is probably the best one. I finally went and watched that, and I will concede that was a really good Star Wars show. But Hawkeye was pretty good. I think they really worked off some of the rough edges of the Kate Bishop character that you get in the comic books that makes her so unpleasant and unlikable. And Haley Steinfeld likely had a lot to do with that because she just seems like a nice person and gives a good performance. And I think Season 2 of Hawkeye would be enjoyable. I enjoyed the first one. Maybe they do another holiday. Maybe it's Thanksgiving this time. Maybe it's Easter. Maybe it's Valentine's Day, something like that, because I did like that it was like Christmas themed and had a good time with that one. But yeah, Jeremy Renner would be very difficult because I do think he's like recovered, but I don't think like it doesn't sound like he might ever come back to acting or something like that. But he probably does have some type of physical limitations and stuff like that now. So maybe him coming aboard as the mentor of the Young Avengers would be a good idea. But I don't know that we ever see Young Avengers. I mean, that was really teed up at the end of the Marvels. And that movie lost so much money and was so unsuccessful. Like, do you want to continue on with ideas that were teased and pitched at the very end of that and actually see it through? It might be a stupid idea. Now, Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios have taken a lot of stupid ideas to their conclusion, which is failure. Will they go along with Young Avengers? We'll see. I don't think they'll ever get a movie out of something like that, but perhaps they could get a TV show. But it would be very difficult to make it work because they've really screwed up a lot of the characterization outside of Kate Bishop. They've already kind of ruined a lot of the characters that would be, you know, the driving forces of the Young Avengers. But there you go. Perhaps we will see a Hawkeye Season 2. I wouldn't mind that because I did like the first season. Didn't love it, but it was certainly enjoyable. And there we've got two different diverging threads for Spider-Man there. Spider-Man 4 sounds like it's on the fast track and will likely be seen sooner rather than later, while they keep pushing the Miles Morales Spider-Verse stuff down the road, keeps delayed, despite Across the Spider-Verse literally not ending. It was a cliffhanger, but there was no real conclusion to the movie. It didn't even have a natural ending. It just said you're going to see another movie to actually conclude this story. Not very smart, but it kind of makes sense for Sony. If you like what we're doing here, covering not only comic books, but all the stuff around comic books, movies, television, all that stuff, and you want to support Think Critical YouTube, providing a little bit of honesty to this industry, I do invite you to come visit me on Think Critical Patreon. If you support me there, you get lots of bennies. You get awesome exclusive videos, you get awesome podcasts, and all that kind of stuff, depending on the tier. Determines how much of that you do get. There's a link in the video description. I hope to see you there.